Hi, welcome to Paper Labyrinths. I'm Nick.
I'm Brendan.
And joining us is Brian Bucklew, who's the co-founder of Freehold Games and co-creator of the expansive science fantasy roguelike Caves of Cud. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Thanks for inviting me on.
Thank you for joining us. We last episode talked to Jason, the other co-founder and co-creator of Caves of Cud, and so felt it would be fun and appropriate to just have you two back-to-back while everyone's thinking about Cud. How are you now, post 1.0, pre-Hugo,
pre-Hugo, geez. There's no way we're beating 1,000 X Resist, but it was nice to be nominated. I think I'm doing fine. I think the team's doing fine. I think we all took somewhere between 1 and 6 months off, depending on the person, to recover. I'm a little more ADD than most, so I kind of started it earlier.
That makes sense.
We got a bunch of stuff going on now. We got the teams like full bore on next expansion and localization and porting to platforms, and I had like a bunch of game projects that I had kept deferring for Cud launch, and that ended up being like 5 years between when we said, oh, we're in the final shoot to launch and now launching. And so now I'm like, I'm so old, I just have to do all these games. So I'm just working on like 5 different video games.
I was going to ask if your taking time off means just finding the time to do the projects that you always said you'd find the time to do.
Yeah, I mean, Cud was kind of one of those, right? Like, Cud was like a side project for a long time. We did ship it; it took a long time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, now I've just got even picking just the coolest projects with the most fun people making, the absolute most fucked up stuff. It's still half a dozen projects, right? Like that's, but I got to do them all. They're each one of them is irresistible, and so I'm just building them and seeing where they each go.
Awesome.
Going a little wide right now.
Do you get that feeling of you take time off and then your brain immediately solves like half a dozen other game problems and like fills up with new ideas?
I'm just like,
or is it a constant stream?
I'm pretty bad at taking time off, right? Like I like force myself to just do nothing but sit on the couch. And what did I do? Even I played some video game. I don't even remember. I was playing. I don't remember. I vegetated on the couch for a month or two playing stuff. And by then it's just like, by 2 months in, it's just like I can't not do something. There's too much stuff that I want to do. I want to like make a mech game. I want to make I got more.
I really want
dumb RPGs to make, right? Like I want to make a mech game.
You've been teasing, right? You've been teasing a mech game, and I want it.
The problem is I got in and I'm like, oh, there's quite a few mech games that need to be made, right? Like there really are not any great first person mech games anymore. They're like the current Mech Warrior is fine. I would say it's I played it all, right? Like I played 1,000 hours of it with mods and stuff, but I feel like there's more to say there and in mech games, and I think that there's like really grog-nerdy, Steel Panther's World at War style mech games to make, and I think that there's less grog-nerdy narrative games to make in both the psycho mech space and the tank mech space and the Gundam space. There's like 50 mech games you have to make.
That's true. It's our responsibility.
It really is. Like that's like just the minimum buy-in for the rest of my life, and then there's 100 games in a bunch of other genres. So like, where do you even start? You just have to start doing it.
You, as the self-appointed mech game steward, have a lifelong burden, divinely given to just make them all. Yeah.
the mandate of heaven, I think it's called.
Yes, that's right.
I would really love to just be playing them. Like I would just like to sit on but it seems like they just aren't getting made, right? Like some are getting made, but many fewer than I would buy and play.
It's a very specific curse that to make a game is to not be able to enjoy it.
Well, I was thinking about this, doing my research for this episode, and I was thinking about this impulse to make something because you yourself want to experience it, because you want to play it, because not merely because you want it to exist within the world, but because you're producing a thing that that you want to be able to sit down with your friends and play. And I was thinking more and more about this idea of okay, well, there's lots of games that I've made where I have thought, oh, I have a particular story I want to tell, or I have a particular idea that I think would be interesting, but I want other people to experience that. And I think there's something really interesting about the problem, especially of I want to create something whose results will surprise me in interesting ways, both by virtue of putting it in other people's hands, but also because of the systems that it will generate. And I was wondering if both of you, I think maybe had some thoughts about that, about, this idea of putting your hands not merely in, RNG to give you results that are interesting, but standing things up that will combine those elements in interesting ways that will surprise even the creator and provide delightful results when you're playing them.
Well, yeah, I have a couple thoughts. Early on, I guess Caves of Cud came from that impulse where we were oh, let's make a procedural game, and that game will be something that maybe we can play and will generate, delightful results that will surprise us. But I get older and older and start working with bigger and bigger teams. Mm-hmm. And instead of working in the small team, quote unquote solo dev mode, now we're working in, right? That's getting into modern discourse, right? Instead of the 6-person solo dev right now we've got a truly big team. All of these other projects I'm working on are with, other team members, largely designers. And I'm finding that in a more mature mode, I can get all the delight of making a game I want to make and being surprised by the results by just working with other people and engaging with the stuff that they make, because it's always a little askew from what I'm working on, but when we're on the same wavelength, it's better than anything I would have made. Sure. Right? Yeah. It's oh geez, look how great this is. I love to experience this. And so I can only suggest working with other people on these projects of love. I think there's a tendency to want to go in your hole and just make it on your own, right, and make the perfect, because working with teams is always challenging. It takes a lot of emotional maturity from people, but that's the kind of thing that gets easier with age, I think, because everybody just gets, more and more experienced working with other people. Everybody gets a little more and more prickly, but I think the emotional tenor of everyone comes down to the point where, oh, okay, we can conversate about this and find a middle ground. And so I'm really enjoying working on these sort of middle-aged teams that where the emotional tenor has come down, and suddenly these collaborations become very powerful. It's really fun.
Yeah, multiplicatively more creative than you would be on your own, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's a really good point about this idea of not merely with age, but also with experience, right? Of this idea of you're never going to get good at the thing unless you do it a whole bunch. And so that means seeking out creative partners, working with other people, and, building those relationships. Some of them won't stand the test of time. Some of them will work for a time and then you'll move on. But you'll never find those people that you want to keep working with over and over and over again unless you put yourself out there and continue to collaborate, right?
And I it's so much about just not having enough time, right? I feel I'm just now really gaining mastery in my field,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
Just a few years before I'm going to be too old to do anything, really, is what it feels like. And so I feel I might, there's no way I'm ever going to gain that kind of mastery in the other fields. I can dabble a little bit, but boy, it is so much more effective just to search as hard as I can to find people who I really vibe with, right? Who can say yes and to anything that I'm thinking, and have the same level of mastery of their skills as I do mine, and do a trade, right? Totally. You give me some cool design and I'll give you some cool code, and look at the cool stuff we can make. It is difficult in its own way, but the results are amazing. I really enjoy it.
Awesome.
On the being surprised thing, what I've because I've also chased that. I mean, I don't know, high, I guess, right? Because it is like really, really exciting when it actually happens for a design you've put together to excite you. What I've realized is a little bit more consistently is I'm rarely playing my own game, like truly like just playing it as a player and not trying to spot everything that needs to be worked on or could have been done differently or whatever. But Brendan, I wanted to ask you, because you just released a TTRPG that you built for your Oathsworn podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And so what is it like playing? Is there like a qualitative difference between playing your own TTRPG, which, you know, has a lot of other elements and, you know, people and whatever, 100 dice, etc., versus something slightly more whatever, determinist or video game? I don't know. For me, it feels like there's something different there, but I wanted to ask you that.
You mean playing something that you made yourself, and so like how the sausage is put together, as opposed to something else you picked up off the shelf or something like that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this particular game, An Hour of Wolves, it was born out of this idea of like, I want a game where it is certainly a possibility to lose. And that's because of the theme of the thing, right? It is a game about the final battle against, the Dark Army that has been chasing you this entire time. And so I wanted there to be the distinct possibility that you can do everything that you can possibly do. You can get as ready as you can fight as bravely as is possible, but you can have some bad turns of bad luck, and it can simply not go the way that you wanted it to go. And that's still an interesting, valid story that you get to tell. But neither is it guaranteed that, this is a game where everyone is going to die by the very end. No more than it's, the end of The Lord of the Rings, where Frodo's absolutely going to pull through. Spoilers for The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. And so I wanted something, and I worked very, very deliberately to be like, I'm in search of numbers that provide enough tension that people feel like disaster is absolutely a possibility, and regardless of whether or not it really happens or how real a chance that is, the feeling of it is really there. You sort of get this feeling in games like XCOM, right? Where you are, or maybe XCOM is a bad example, but like a lot of games in that space will do like, if it says 90 or 95% chance to hit an enemy or something like that, then what that really is that's a projection of 100% shot, but with a little bit of uncertainty thrown on top to make the player feel like there is a little bit of uncertainty, to give what is basically a guaranteed shot a little bit more tension, a little bit more narrative zazz than it otherwise would have had. And so part of going into the design of that game that you were gesturing at was like me thinking about like, okay, well, I play all of these other games where I feel like I have a good sense of the odds, but how much of that is my interpretation of the odds versus what the designer wanted me to interpret? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly, and I'd love to throw it over to Brian on this. Like part of what's interesting to me about TTRPGs is how much you can communicate, not merely with dice odds, but with dice sizes and stuff like that. Like, CUD is a very particular kind of feeling game, because so much of what you start with are weapons that can deal D2 damage, right? It's not like this weapon will deal 50 damage when you shoot something, like when you're starting a Final Fantasy or something like that. It's a very, very like low stakes is not the right word, but it's like
a compressed range, because you get to a D12 weapon in CUD and you're like, I'm killing God tonight.
Right.
Yeah.
This ain't nothing to me.
Yeah, I mean, like CUD came out of a tabletop RPG design that we were working on in sort of like the D&D 4 era, and I'm just personally kind of a fan of small number systems, not not big. I would rather have armor 2 than armor 750, versus a 93 penetration weapon, right? Like, that's kind of an aesthetic choice. It's certainly kind of worse from a design perspective.
Can you say a little bit more about why you feel that way?
It's like purely aesthetic. It's like, why do I like, green instead of purple?
Yeah,
I'm not really sure. Like, I feel like to me, when I see systems that the way I feel is like, I feel like they're MMO-y feeling systems where you just see the raw, like it's like seeing the raw piping underneath the design when you see those numbers. Yeah. It's like, yeah, okay, you're showing me the spreadsheet values from which I feel like you should put some kind of like drywall on top of, right? But when you show me my armor is now like 98.6 and I just upgraded it from 97.3, like, geez, like,
you really couldn't multiply all these by 10? Come on.
Yeah, like, what are we doing here, right? Like, it just feels too raw to me as a game player, saying nothing from a game designer. There's nothing really wrong with it, like, I think there's lots of practical reasons why that's true, totally. Especially in systems like MMOs. But like you're saying, I think dice are very tactile, right? And I feel like the act of throwing dice and using dice in all their colors and their shapes is something that lives on top of the numbers that they represent and is maybe more important than the numbers they represent, right? Like, it's like you can like, just I can throw a fistful of D6s and it has a feeling that's completely separate from what numbers show up on them.
Mm-hmm. Right? I remember being young, although I'm the youngest on this call, so leave me alone. Learning Vampire the Masquerade and encountering it being my first time I encountered an exploding D6, and my brain was just like, whoa, wait, hold on. It just keeps going. And it could never stop. Like, damn right, it could never stop. That's why it's called exploding.
That's right.
And I feel like it's in relationships with game systems like marbles, which, there's no numbers there, but the taking a handful of marbles and throwing them along the floor, shooting them and bouncing them, right? Like, these are all systems we've kind of like converged on dice. So I can imagine a tabletop system where we're like shooting marbles across to resolve combat, right? Which, would feel a little dice-like. But like, I think part of the original tabletop system that drove CUD was us experimenting with tactile dice, like exploding dice for penetration, and having the numbers over the armor relate to the physicality of the weapons actually penetrating the armor. But I would say we were pretty novice tabletop designers, and still are pretty novice tabletop designers. That is not really the space we've played in. Sure. But that's sort of where the system of CUD emerged from.
Yeah, that's why, like, my complete just kind of read from it from the outside is why the CUD numbers are small beyond an aesthetic choice, which I think, I don't know, I feel like most designers, I guess most board game designers would lean towards that, because typically in a board game or a TTRPG, you find your one, like your smallest number, which is sometimes 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever, and then everything scales and divides off of that. And so, yeah, it makes sense to like, well, a 1d2 is, and you make a TTRPG and you flip a coin for your dagger, and then you scale it up to 12 or 20 if you're going to get really crazy. Whereas I guess like aesthetic presentation or the affordances of the presentation in a video game are like, well, there's no reason we couldn't just have this like crazy long 6-digit number explode off screen, and then you have like E numbers and whatever, right? And that I feel like the starting point drives it a little bit more. You can kind of go both ways, I suppose, if you really, really wanted. But yeah.
I mean, it does make me think of like a scientific notation game, right? Like where at the table you're really dealing with like, 1.8 E37. I mean, it would be kind of funny.
Well,
I don't know if anybody's played
I know you and I have both played High Frontier, which is, oh boy, a game, one of the few board games that correctly models spaceflight and the like logarithmic and exponential numbers in space flight. There's a whole lot more to it that we're not going to get into, but that is a weirdly like, impressive accomplishment in abstraction. And it's not an easy game to play, but it does pull it off, which is really, and if you look at the map, you can see how it pulls it off, which is, if for the right person, a beautiful map, and for a different person, a kind of a nightmare of like a Junji Ito nightmare.
See, as soon as you said this, I started shaking my head because this is the opposite of what I look for in a board game experience. But this is a handsome looking board game right here. This might get me in for an evening.
Oh, you should buy it and crack it open and rifle through it if nothing else, because like Nick's saying, it's not like anything else out there. It is like, okay, what if we really tried to make as accessible as possible without simplifying it past really representing what it's representing?
Yeah.
The orbital mechanics and the way you transit between planets and the gravitational shape of the solar system. And it does a really good job of that.
Yeah.
It still necessarily simplifies some things, but if you were to actually sit down and understand it, you'd be like, oh, wow, I really kind of understand the way you might ship cargo between planets in an imagined, real, truly hard sci-fi universe, right. Which is like just an almost literary accomplishment more than a game design accomplishment. I mean, it's really impressive.
And it uses like as its like smallest unit, right? Like one point of water, which is also fuel, and water is just like kind of the like whatever it can do anything substance, which is sort of true in a very high level sense, right?
If you were going to go to space, that's what you're at. You're first after water because and the reason is that in space you need oxygen to live, mm-hmm. and water can produce oxygen. The other cool thing about it is if you produce oxygen from it, you get hydrogen. You can burn that, right? So once you've separated it, that's energy storage. So you take electricity, you separate it into energy storage. You also need, if you're going to move in space, you need reaction mass. Water is nice and dense. So you could take that, you could propel it out of the back of your spacecraft.
It's also radiation shielding and irrigation, like literally everything.
You can drink it, right? Like it's really just, it really is kind of the magic substance of the universe, is sort of rusted hydrogen. It does everything. You got to go find it.
I'm not doing the podcast anymore. I'm looking for this board game on eBay.
That's it.
Brendan, just
I gotta know how to use Lagrange points.
I think,
that's right.
Yeah, you'll definitely learn about Hohmann transfers and Lagrange points. I don't think it'll be an evening. It might be a touch longer than that, but
this is a singularity into which you are about to descend.
Of all the lies printed on board game boxes of durations, this one might be the most egregious because I think it says 2 hours. Which is insane.
It's like 2 hours to open the box and go through the contents.
I played it once. I usually play it solo because surprise, no one in my life wants to play this. Oh, that's so true. Sorry, I have one friend very kindly did play it with me, and we played like a quarter of a game. Where was I even going?
We were talking about number sizes.
We were talking about number sizes. I think I had a point with the one water of High Frontier, but yes, the small numbers. I think a board game like small numbers, a video game, it's a lot easier to find yourself in bigger number territory. And then you get exponential craziness like High Frontier or Leaving Earth, which also does similar things.
Yeah, paper clips.
There's
a few incremental games as sort of a genre play with it, but like the best one is of course like it's not just called paper clips.
No,
it's
called Factory or something like that.
No.
So everyone is yelling because they know what it is.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, the best one is Bellatra. Let's be real.
Well, that's true. They did a very
I was just go ahead.
I was going to say I like when the number go up.
Oh yes, yeah.
Universal paper clips. I thought of it. There we go. It came out of my brain.
Thank you.
Stop yelling at us.
which if you haven't played, it meshes exactly with the High Frontier theme, and you very much should go play it.
I actually should
if you're
go
listening
play
to the
it.
podcast.
I've been aware of it for a long time, and I just haven't gotten around to it.
You should. Oh, you would love this game.
I know. Yeah, roughly what it's about, and yeah, but not the arc of it specifically, I suppose. So.
Oh, it's take an hour this afternoon and play the whole thing. Is just wonderful.
It's kind of like a legacy game.
Well, that's fun. You mean a Risk or Pandemic legacy game or something?
I do. I'd be a little bit facetious.
But of course. Well, yeah. Where else would you do that?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe you haven't played this yet. That's you've got such a delightful hour waiting for you.
Say more about legacy games, Brennan. In the Infinities specifically.
See, I was thinking a lot about legacy games in part because I was thinking about dice because I was playing Mothership the other day. Brian, have you played Mothership?
I don't play any real life games except for Terraforming Mars and Wingspan because those are the ones my kids and wife like to play.
Sure.
So I've got a closet.
Terraforming Mars, another game where water is very important.
Of course.
Yeah. Mothership is a old school Renaissance, I would say, tabletop game about horror games in space. It's about miners and space truckers and scientists basically encountering terrible anomalous things and dying in the process of trying to deal with whatever's going on.
I do have this on my shelf.
Hell yeah.
I would like to play it.
It's very good.
It's very good, but it follows in this tradition of it rewards really, really being intent about the way that you're approaching a situation, and if you're rolling dice, then odds are good something is going wrong. And that's, the fun part of the game, in part because it's a game that you play knowing that something is going to go wrong, right? I play not suicidally necessarily, but I am there to see the cool monster and see what goes on. And so I'm deliberately playing the idiot scientist that doesn't know any better that will open the door. You know what I mean? I'm not going to play as I'm going to refuse the call of adventure. I'm going to stay here in my room. Thank you very much. And I was thinking about the tension between that mode of play of okay, I know something bad is going to happen and that if I'm rolling dice, things are not in my favor. But it's really fun to roll dice is the thing. And I was thinking about this in conjunction with legacy games because so much of the fun of legacy games is that moment where you're opening the envelope or you're tearing open the cardboard box or you're discovering a new component and adding it in. And part of that is just Christmas morning, I get the new thing, I get to consume the new piece of content that has suddenly become available to me. But I think there's also just such even digitally a tactile joy in that speculative moment of okay, it's time for me to do the thing and anything could be on the other side of it. And I was thinking about the difficulty of building a game that is inherently tense and precipitous, but making sure that the player still has regular moments of fun interaction. Because in this particular session of Mothership, I was really trying to be okay, I know something bad is going to happen, but I want to do something. So please, let me open the door and keep moving towards doing something. And part of that was negotiating the table, but also that particular system tends towards this idea of if you're rolling dice, something bad is happening. So avoid rolling dice.
Yeah, I think this is something that roguelikes in general try to solve, right? I think that they're often about consequential action. I think is kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If in real life we kind of try to avoid consequences because any negative consequences you only can take so many of them, right? You have a pretty finite number of negative consequences you can suffer.
I have very few hit points.
Yeah, but in games, you're there because the negative consequences are okay. I think, or at least in some games that's true. Roguelikes in particular are games that are built around having choices that do have lasting consequences. You can go die, and that's it, right? Like your character's over and you have to start over. And the early ones, that was it. There was no kind of meta progression. There was no legacy mechanic. And I think in general, as legacy games kind of came, what was the first big legacy game? It was like,
I think Risk Legacy
Risk was the big first one as far as like stickers and envelopes. Yeah, it was Risk.
Yeah, I think the at the same time, I feel like roguelikes were experimenting with legacy mechanics that were saying, oh, okay, you died, but you're gonna unlock these things. And now you play a game like, I feel like playing Monster Train 2 recently, like almost the whole experience is just, it comes with 200,000 envelopes you get to open, and it. Who knows? Like the game, it has no intent of balance at all. You're just like, ripping through your envelopes and playing with the next thing that happened until you get to rip open a new envelope, and that's like it. Which is great. That's fun.
Totally.
I feel like there's a lot more interest to dig out there, though, right? Because even thinking now, like dice are so fun, but I don't know if I've ever played a game. Like in real life, it would be hard to have legacy dice where you like crack open your lathe or your drill and like drill a new pip onto your die.
Sure.
But you could very easily do that in the digital space, right? Like, I'm upgrading my 6-sided die, and now my 6-sided die has an extra 6th side because now it's a 7-sided die, right?
Or it only rolls 5s.
Yeah, whatever, right? Like that would be easy. Like 6 goblins pop out of the 2 every time you roll a 2, right? Like that would be kind of fun. I could see that. It would be like weird legacy Yahtzee or something.
Mm-hmm. I think Slice and Dice is the most probably straightforward dice roguelike I know of, where it's like, oh, you've got your I'm gonna butcher a bit of the theme here, but it's your warrior die, and you've got swords on some sides and shields and so on. You've got a party and you roll your pool and so on and so forth. It's very good. But I don't think it does quite the legacy thing that you're describing of like, Tharsis is fantastic.
Have you played Tharsis? I don't know if I've ever met anyone else who's played Tharsis, which is like it's like Tharsis. Martian. It's something it got such negative reviews. I played it and I was like, oh, this is the best. This is like Mars colonization Yahtzee. I feel like it prefigured some of the games like Signalis and Dicey Dungeons by it's like from 2016. It's quite old, right? Like and it did a lot of things very right. It was very hard, right? But it was ultimately solvable. Like you look at the reviews and they're all like, this game is all RNG, but if you could actually get good at it and win the games. So
I've won one game of Tharsis in my life. I feel pretty good about it.
It's a pretty fun game for those of you who want hard sci-fi dice Yahtzee. Mm-hmm. That's a game to look
Mothership
at.
and Tharsis, there are many. If you're in one of those circles, the Venn diagram is overlapping you on the other.
Gosh, how good would Tharsis but with like a monster be?
I'd be very good.
Like a dice mechanic.
Really good.
I feel like that's a video game that someone needs to make.
Yeah.
Put it on the list, Brian.
All right.
Oh, geez. Someone else, please. I have so many video games. Like a little monster die that gets rolled every turn and it directs the monster around the ship. Oh, it would be pretty good.
I've thought about, Brendan, the Mothership slight incoherence of the you want to roll die and have the little bit of speculation, but very much the die are bad, which is interesting because Mothership has another die you can roll, because typically you're rolling D100 to do something and it's like 20 to 30% chance of success, but then in a certain situation you get enough stress and you roll a panic die, and then if you fail that roll, then your character can have bad things up to and including, being vaporized, right? And I wonder if you could house rule like fun die into Mothership, and then you have your fun die, which is like doing not doing things, but it is giving you it's giving you your cake that you can then eat with the bad die of like, you want a little bit of your speculation of doing the fun thing that you're sitting down at the table for, and then you like rotate to the evil die that are like you want to avoid kind of maneuver.
I was
I don't know if it's doable though.
I'm sure that it is. I mean, So many games that I play, I can't help but think like, I'm just gonna take this one little thing and tweak a little bit, even if it's just as simple as like, we're not gonna play with encumbrance rules or survival mechanics or whatever. You know what I mean? And so like, I think particularly from the other side of the screen as a game master, you have to really think about like, okay, when the player uses the computer, is that a moment where risk can happen? Is it worthwhile to roll a die there where something bad could happen? Do I just give them the information, or do I give them a roll, like a fortune roll in Forge in the Dark or something like that, where it's like there's no risk, but it is random how much information you'll get out of that thing or something like that. You can also go like the I've also played Trophy, which is goes completely the opposite direction, where basically like everything is a perception roll, and so whenever you're doing it, it's interesting. I'm kind of butchering it, but like I'll suffice to say that I played one session of Trophy and then we stopped playing.
I mean, it's true of so many games I do those. So
it was really trying to distill everything into like, okay, we're all here to tell a story, and the only time that we're gonna roll, which is all the time, you can learn things about the world, get into danger, and get resources all from that same roll. And it really just sort of meant like we were taking the exact same action over and over and over.
Right.
And over
it
and
feels
over
like a bend fate, good or bad kind of role in a very a generic, but I don't mean that in a pejorative way necessarily. But
right. Yeah.
It is interesting, like, why you roll dice or have any probabilistic outcome, right? Like, it feels like it's probably too often in systems, and like, it's interesting to think about. I guess I've never really thought about it in these terms, which is that a die roll will have a sort of range of outcomes. And I guess there's a difference between a die roll whose range extends down into deleterious outcomes versus a die roll that is grading how good you're going to do versus a die roll that maybe is grading something horrible. And I see this almost never, which is something really bad is happening to you no matter what.
Right.
And we're going to roll a die that is going to tell you whether it's bad or it's like really damn bad. Yeah. Right? Like you very rarely see a die roll on that edges where the bottom and the top of the range are all capped within the bad zone. But it would probably be fun to roll that die, right?
Just I feel like you could get there, as you know, if you sat down as a DM and prepped everyone at the table to go, hey, if you roll great, that's still you could set the boundaries like that for sure. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if that's played with as much.
You know what game does this well, which is like really takes some brain power to learn, but Norlandia, where you're rolling both light and dark die at the same time, and you're basically trying to cancel out the bad ones with your light rolls, but as the mystery goes on, you're almost always rolling more dark die than light die, and so you're really just trying to like distill down how bad things are going to get into your preferred shape by what you cancel out or don't, which is really, really fun. It doesn't necessarily lead to coherent mysteries, but it's really, really fun mysteries.
It's interesting, though, because, like, if I'm going to roll, like, a 1d10 and on a 1, my engine blows up, and the rest of them are neutral to good, it feels pretty bad to have my engine blow up, right?
It does, yeah.
I ignore that rule in High Frontier all the time, so, yes.
But if I know that, like, on a 1 through 5 my engine's going to blow up, but on a 6 through 10 something even worse is going to happen, then when my engine blows up, I'm going to feel pretty good about it, right? I'm like, oh geez, that's like, thank God my engine blew up, right?
Exactly.
So like, I feel like communicating that well could make for a pretty interesting system, right?
You would definitely need off ramps on the way up to that, so because at the moment you're like, oh, you walk in the room, like, what do you do? It's like, oh, I roll perception. Like, well, tough luck. Like,
you're eaten by Gru.
You rolled an 18 and an arrow shoots you through the head, and you can you whatever, right? The amount of setup there. Oh, okay.
Unless that's at the very start of the encounter, and I can walk right back into the room with a different guy right now.
Oh
That's
yeah,
right.
the DCC funnel,
Right.
peasant model, absolutely.
Exactly. I'm sorry I interrupted you. I know you've lost your train of thought.
I've 100% lost my train of thought. It's okay. Oh, I was going to bring up Dread, one of my favorite games, which
Tell us about Dread.
in which it's a RPG without dice, wherein you have a Jenga tower, and anytime you would do something dangerous, you pull a block and play Jenga. And if the tower falls, your character dies, either immediately or within a reasonable, narratively appropriate amount of time. Fantastic game for any horror presentation you want to throw at it. Mm-hmm. I think that probably qualifies Brian in that, like, well, I guess it is a pass or fail, right? And like, if you just do the Jenga, then you're fine. But it's like 100% pass, right? There's no degree
but
of.
It's not just pass or fail though, because each one is a ratcheting tension, right? It's like playing chess where you move a pawn forward, like. Yeah, I mean, like, most of the time it's not going to be immediately good or immediately bad, but you've ratcheted the game state, right? Like, the tension is going up each time. So mechanically, I think there's, and that's the most interesting thing that's happening there is it's a physical manifestation of the ratcheting tension of a horror situation,
and it plays brilliant on everyone's, probably most people have played Jenga before, and so you can and have a pretty innate sense of like, oh, this is a really wobbly tower that's going to fall soon.
There's probably like a drinking game in there too, where you just have a bunch of really good vodka or whiskey, and it's like if you make one of these calls, that's the drinking call, and now we've ratcheted the the situation a little bit unreversibly.
Mm-hmm. I do love the tactility of rolling dice, though. It's so much fun.
I'm thinking, there's a bunch of other ratcheting tension systems you could play. They're like literally building a house of cards. Like, oh, you want to do that? Cool. That's a 2-card move, though, right? Like, are you, otherwise the thing's coming down.
I've thought a lot about trying to build a House of Cards TTRPG, but unfortunately, I can't build the first block of a House of Cards, and so I'm uniquely unqualified to generate it.
What designer is good at their game anyway? So I'm just make it.
Surely all of them. Surely everyone's good at the game they make, right?
I mean, dice are stackable, right? D6s are stackable. That's something you do that naturally at the table. Poker chips.
Yeah,
right?
Tyler Crumrine has a really good dice stacking game.
You do domino houses.
That's true.
Tyler Crumrine also has a very good dominoes.
Yeah, but you don't stack it, so this will be completely different.
That's true. Here, I want to go back to Dread really quick because you brought up Dread before, and I want to tie this in with the question you asked earlier about the game that I had just released, which uses the Wretched and Alone rule set, which is based on a game called The Wretched, created by Chris Bissett, which is a lot like Dread, in that it uses solo RPG that uses a Jenga tower that is about an explorer who's on a busted spaceship that has a monster somewhere on it. And there's a journaling game of you're the last survivor and you have to get your ship repaired and you have to not get killed by the monster that is there. And so each day you draw cards, and depending on what cards you draw, you pull blocks from the tower. And if the tower falls, then the monster finds you and gets you. And there's other ways to lose too, maybe you freeze in space, etc., etc. But really, what you're worried about is the monster that is lurking in the ship, outside the ship, wherever, is trying to get you. And there are some cards that you draw that say, oh, you managed to repair the radio. You send a distress signal out. Start counting. If this counter gets up to a certain amount, then you're able to escape. Or, oh, you repaired the engine. Start counting. If you get up to this amount, then you manage to harvest enough fuel to fly to safety. The magic of this game, and spoilers for Chris Bissett's The Wretched, is that all of those victory conditions are lies. Not a single one of them is accomplishable without somehow like really, really, really skewing the odds. Like you have to be a master tier Jenga player in order to play the game for long enough in order for any of those things to happen.
So how many, as an example, like pulls would you have to do to theoretically complete? I
don't have it in front of me, but it's like
okay, like 12 or
20 or 30 or something like that.
Oh my god!
yeah. It's like physically impossible to do. But
your tower would have to be like pure crisscrosses all the way up or something.
Yeah.
Right,
just complete Asherian nightmare.
Wow.
But the fiction of the game tells you, hey, there's a way to win. And so, like a horror protagonist, you're thinking like, if I can just hold out, then I can win. And that provides this lens of hope that gives you such a juicy piece of tension to your inevitable demise. It's so good. And that's why I think everyone should lie to their players.
Yeah. Oh, I don't remember the last time I told the truth to a player.
Boy.
One of the other, Brian, you were talking about like the things dice do in RPGs of like, oh, good, bad, or kind of like, you know, whatever. I think the one that I probably would categorize in there is like an establishment of the world, right? Of like, oh, roll 2. Do you know about, you know, the leader of this faction? Like, what's their deal? And you either do or you don't, and the die is just deciding, right? It's not like a judgment of your ability, which I feel like is a fun sidestepping of the like speculation of what might happen, right? Because you could say, you know, it kind of situates the fiction and the game between the DM and the player, and you know, I guess depending on the right people, right, you could be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna roll, oh, and I rolled badly, but I'm gonna take that and kind of, you know, use that as soil to grow this new idea out of and kind of run with it, as opposed to just like, oh, I don't know, and that is a failure state, right? It feels more complicated than just saying you've done good, you've done bad, and here's a negative outcome or a positive outcome.
Yeah, like in some way it's sort of probing an indeterminate state, right? Where like, I don't know, it's a little bit of a quantum collapse of the character's knowledge. Though those systems always felt a little weird to me, because like, okay, yeah, we've collapsed that, but if we have the next conversation with the same person about the same thing, like, we often don't refer back to the previous roles, right?
Sure.
Like, maybe I don't know this time about that topic, right? It's a kind of funny abstraction. I kind of prefer the more modern RPG takes where you like CRPG takes, where you pick topics and you either know or don't know about the topic. So you end up being a little like, it's sort of a Boolean. They tend to be more narrow. So rather than knowledge about magic, you're like, you know, you're knowledgeable about the underworld or like the magical underworld. And when you have that flag, you kind of know everything about it, which I think like in general, it's more fun to me to have a chunkier power about your player, because often the I don't know, like, I feel like the fantasy of a player is that I'm good at some things, and when I try to do them, I pretty much always succeed, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that much fun if, like, Scotty in Star Trek is like, I couldn't quite get the engine working, it's going okay, right? Like, we're going warp 6.5. Is that okay, Captain? The captain's like, yeah,
wait,
I guess.
he says that every episode.
Right, like, you know, like, but I mean, it's most fun if you're like, oh yeah, this time I'm at warp 9.99999,
Sure,
right? Like, really, like, very good versus extremely good, right? That's kind of like what you want your PC to be about, is when you're in your domain, you're like really succeeding, not like kind of succeeding.
Right.
And I think like a lot of RPG systems often fail at doing that, where you're just like, you tried to do that even though your whole thing is you're a wizard, and it didn't work, you know, you didn't really do wizarding that well.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the biggest complaint people might have with Mothership, or maybe OSR games in general, is like, oh yeah, you're the teamster, you can pilot ships. That means you've got a 35 on your piloting, and thus a 35% chance to...
Or the red herrings of like, oh, I'm really good at art. Is that relevant here? Can I look at the art and use that to defeat the monster?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know, I feel like the most interesting games are the ones that allow players to lean into it. Like, when you're reading Lord of the Rings, like, Gandalf's never like kind of okay at being a wizard, right? He has a lot of failings, and like when he's really good at like his biggest downfalls is when he gets like a little too good at wizarding. Like he goes and fights a Balrog and it works, and like that, when you succeed too much, you end up down in the roots of the earth, right? Like hand-to-handing a Balrog,
right?
So like I feel like that's more fun to me always is to be good at your thing no matter where the dice are falling, and the dice are like revealing the level of epicness, and your weaknesses are never like, oh, I tried to wizard and like I kind of forgot all my magic right now, and then the Balrog kicked me over the cliff.
Oh no!
And more like, okay, I got into a non-wizarding situation like being lost in Moria, and now I'm like, I'm not that great at finding my way around Moria. Like that's a much more interesting failure state to me.
Totally.
So
you want your dice to be either insanely good or insanely bad, and nothing everything in between. Your minus 50 and your plus 50.
Yeah, well, like what are we doing there? Like why is that a part of the game, right? Like we're skipping.
What's the storytelling happening there, really, right?
It obviously depends on the kind of story you're telling. You can tell a more mundane story, fine. Okay, like we're telling a story about being in suburban Georgia in 1983. Like my outcomes there are probably more median than one where I'm a wizard in Middle Earth, right?
Sure.
But like if you're like, I think often you get the these like very median outcomes in systems that are trying to be high fantasy or sci-fi, and it's like I just think those are stylistically, narratively weird and wrong.
I wonder if that might be something where people play Mothership wanting to have the high sci-fi experience in their mind of Event Horizon or Alien or whatever, when really the game is actually saying, you're the most mundane person ever. In a bad situation, you have a 20% chance of pulling this off, right? And there's like a weird gap of, players want to have a good time, want to tell a really fun, like exciting, narratively interesting story. And then the dice are skewed to like, well, you are regular person, contractor for the corporation. The alien would just kill you, right? Like you are not Ripley or whoever.
The thing is that people want to, like, you're there because you're Ripley, right? Like it's kind of fun to play Alien where Ripley wasn't on the ship and the alien just saved everyone, right? Like, but I think a lot of people come saying like, oh well, at least one of us at the table is going to be Ripley, right? Like, and should that be an outcome that's based on the dice, and like 80% of the time no one's Ripley, and it's discovering that that's true most of the time?
Right.
It's not invalid to make that game, but I feel like if I pick up that game, I'm expecting to get the alien experience, and the game should probably support, like that particular fantasy.
Yeah, I'd expect some sort of escalation of player agency, even as their like level of fragility stays the same. You know what I mean? Where like, I think games that give you like consumable resources to like say like this time and this time only I get a 6 no matter what, or this will give me a +1 on whatever I roll next, or something like that. Like when you're able to save up for those moments where you really need it, even if you're going to get, disemboweled or something like that, you wind up. Go ahead.
What would be fun is I think one of the interesting things about Alien, just thinking about Alien, the very first one, is that I don't think Ripley knows, or any of us know at the beginning. Like we now know, it's hard to remember that we now know 25 years later that Ripley is a badass who fucking kills hundreds of aliens. But at the very beginning of Alien, all of those people on the ship are at the same level. You don't know who Ripley is or who's going to survive. It would be pretty fun to hide those characteristics. Like, you have a few face-down character cards that only come out in the face of pressure, right? And you flip them over. Sometimes you're not a great character. Like, you're like, okay, I got under pressure. Here we go. I get to flip over one of my cards, and oh, wow, I panic under pressure, right? Like, I immediately flee the situation. Or, hey, maybe you're Ripley. Like, your next 3 dice are, you get triple the roll under pressure. Like, that's pretty cool. I got a heroic trait. But you don't know at the beginning of the game who is going to be that, who's going to flip like a traitor card. Like, oh, you're a corporate spy. And you got to go, like flip over, That would be pretty fun.
Next time I run Mothership, I'm gonna force everyone to not roll their character until they do something, and then it's like roll like what's your strength to open this door?
We don't know yet.
This like magnetically shut airlock. Let's find out what your strength is and go. Like that would be a lot of fun.
That's almost
have
like
to change the game.
Yeah, that's almost like not merely character creation, but like life path stuff, like emerging as part of the funnel. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty cool.
Like you wake up from cryo sleep, so you're you don't really know like what I don't have much memory at all, right? Like where am I? What's my name? Right? Like I gotta jack open the door. Oh geez, I'm pretty strong.
All right, we're gonna have you back so we can keep working on this game now.
Yeah. Right. This can only happen on recording.
Oh good, I just needed one more game to work on.
Yeah, there we go. Well, here this will expand your.
That was the final slot.
This will expand your much desired TTRPG repertoire.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. That's how I would make and play that game.
Yeah.
See, that's a good one because we can all imagine playing that and having a moment of discovery, right? Like being surprised by the revelation of our characters.
Oh, it turns out we're all super huge.
Look at that.
And then you have a ship of Ripley's, and everyone's competing to kill
three Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the alien is just on the run, right? Like I'm gonna kill the alien.
That's good. That's game design.
That's so stupid, but that's really fun. I would simply play all my games with master Jenga players, and then we would win every time.
I'm glad I came on the show because I did not realize Jenga had become as core a mechanic as like six-sided dice in the modern tabletop game. That's pretty great.
There's another really good one called Star-Crossed, which is a 2-player game about two would-be lovers, and when the tower falling is will they, won't they? So it's all about these two characters of like, will they act on their feelings? And each time you engage with the other character, you're pulling a block because that's putting yourself at risk in front of this person you have a crush on.
You could do this with any game, really. Right? Like you could have a checkers game going on in the middle of light versus dark, and you get to make a dark move or a light move, right? Like if you pass, or a chess game, or like a marbles game, right? Like any of these games could serve as meta ratcheting state machines for a game state that you're working towards.
It's good.
Would that like game engine, so to speak, needs some kind of like uncertainty the way Jenga does? Because that's like checkers, depending on how you structured it right, is very deterministic, where you're relying on some physical unknowable aspect of Jenga to crash everything at some point, right? Or just people being imprecise with their hands.
Well, if for checkers, for instance, like you could have it, well, if the light side wins, then you win, and if the dark side wins, then you lose. And sometimes you get to make a move for the dark side if you've done particularly well, and it's a bad move, right? Like you get to mess up their position. Whereas if then the game master gets to make a dark side move, and it's probably the right move. Maybe they're bad at checkers, in which case like the dark side's a little weaker under
my tic-tac-toe RPG is being spoiled by these perfect tic-tac-toe strategies.
Yeah, or I don't know. There's a lot of games out there, right?
Yeah. Brian, do you have anything you'd like to plug while you're here?
No, I mean everyone's playing Caves of Cod and it's amazing, and we've been able to.
It's true. Everyone loves you. Everyone's saying you're beautiful. Everyone's giving you all of their money.
It's pretty amazing. We get to work on Caves of Cod for at least another couple years at the current sales run rate, and we're using that time to do like not only new stuff, but make a lot of more messed up stuff for Caves of Cud, which hopefully will let us work for one more year on Caves of Cud for as many years as that works, right? Like that's the hope, that's the dream. It's been pretty amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. It was a lot of fun.
Totally.